All right, welcome. Very exciting member spotlight week here on It's All Relational with Amisha Gandhi. Thank you so much for joining us this week, Amisha.
Thank you so much for having me, Trevor.
Yeah, yeah. Now, Amisha, you were formerly a student representative for the WAMPT board, so you're familiar with WAMPT, obviously. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you chose to become an LMFT in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wasn't, this is my second career, so choosing, either mental health counseling or marriage and family therapy. The description for marriage and family therapy really just drew me to taking that route because I'm South Asian. It's so relational in the sense of like it's not just myself individually, it's
Right.
couples or families or grandparents or the community. And so that's why I was really drawn to becoming an LMFT due to the relational aspects.
Right. Yeah. The systemic relational thinking, yeah, it's such an important part of our profession, obviously.
Absolutely.
And you're saying, your South Asian background and your family cultural heritage, it really plays into that idea of the significance, the importance of family.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In India or even here, the immigrants, family is such a huge proportion of being so close. If family's not here, trying to make a community of similar people. So, yeah, the systemic family community, because one person knows one person, and
Mhm.
it makes you feel like you're home, even though you're not.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, in our kind of exciting new world of media,
Mm-hmm.
obviously it's all relationals a part of this, um,
Absolutely.
therapists have new ways of being able to communicate, not just with clients, prospective clients, but with the broader, world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And get some of these ideas around systemic relational therapy out there. And that's part of, I think, what you're doing here, Misha, with your podcast that you're launching.
Yes, absolutely. Systemically, it is so important because of different things that might go on
Yeah,
and different ways that you might have handled things and just wondering, did I handle them okay or did I not?
right.
So especially if you come from a family that doesn't really accept
Sure.
speaking or like in the sense of like emotionally or it's all logically based, and so yeah, it's definitely a systemic place.
Yeah, right. So tell us more about your podcast that you're starting, why you're wanting to do this.
Absolutely. So Let's Try and Chat is basically a podcast where it's a judgment free zone where I talk about all the nuances of growing up in the South Asian
Right.
community. Not in a bad way or anything of
Right.
that nature, but much
Mhm.
more of, like, why am I feeling this way? Right?
Right. Right.
The values that my parents gave me, I should just have those, but I'm feeling some other way that I don't know. I can't put a handle on it. So,
Yeah.
um, so a place where we can share.
Yeah. Mhm.
There's no judgment, no fear.
Mhm.
It's like going to a cafe with a friend and just like chatting it up.
Right.
So,
Right. Right. That's the thought of the let's try and chat, to be able to have that kind of judgment-free zone, talking about issues that are significant for South Asians when it comes to their mental health, maybe therapeutic ideas, not necessarily giving advice, but um, trying to kind of engage people in conversations. So what led you to this? I guess I'm wondering why you felt like you wanted to start a podcast like this.
yeah, I know. A year ago, if you asked me, I wouldn't have done this. um, as mentioned, I'm a therapist, and
Yes.
there's only so much I could reach out to, like one-on-one with therapies or family units or anything of that nature. And mind you, this is not just for South Asians too. Anybody that is feeling like,
Sure.
they didn't have a space in their home. But
Right.
a lot of it I do relate because
Mhm.
of the South Asian culture.
Right.
But so like this year in January, I was like, I want to really reach out to something else, and I wasn't really
Yeah.
sure how to do it. And
Hmm.
so then just like kind of thinking, and
Hmm.
even
Hmm.
my workplace, they have a podcast as well. And
Hmm.
so I was
Hmm.
just like, okay, maybe
Yeah.
let me see what is the
Right.
worst that can happen. And so yeah, because everybody listens to podcasts. I know my sisters, they listen to in the radio. I know people getting ready, they just listen. So I'm
Yeah.
just like, why not,
Totally. Totally. Yeah. So the idea, part of what became appealing about this was being able to reach a broader audience, it sounds like, right?
Absolutely.
And I think for a lot of people, something like this is also a creative outlet in ways. And our work, it's kind of unique, right? For a lot of other people, they'll have a job where there's a clear and obvious product at the end of it, or there's some kind of like public facing, element. Our
Right.
work is so private and confidential. It's, I think, a very normal thing for us, especially as LMFTs, the kind of extroverts of the mental health field, right? To
Oh
desire
man.
some sort of other, outlet or connection to a broader audience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is very confidential in our rooms. We don't say anything to anyone except for our supervisors and whatnot.
Right.
But yeah, it's interesting that like even I never even understood in grad school. I'm like, why do people step out of just doing therapy and write books and do other things?
Sure. Right.
I'm like, is it this the way we're supposed to go? But it's super understandable now. Been working for 3 years
Mhm.
and just understand that
Mhm. Mhm.
like you can do so much more and reach so many more people
Yeah.
from the basis of your home.
Right. Right.
So
And
so it
meeting
gives a
people
good.
where they're at, right? Where, like you're saying, people like to listen to podcasts while they're, getting ready for the day or driving or commuting. So what's like an ideal listener for you? Like, what do you think would be like, if I'm thinking about therapists that are listening to this podcast, they're like perfect client to refer this podcast to.
Yeah,
Curious.
that's a great question. So anyone who feels like they have felt some sort of like quietness or judged or like humiliated or like made fun of, that like in front of family or friends, or any case of like, why do I feel like why am I having these different thoughts? Like, is this normal to have these sort of thoughts? Um, like thoughts as far as like, am I good enough? Why am I feeling this anxiety? You
Yeah.
know? Um,
Yeah, there's kind of flavor of being an outsider, right? Or
yes.
not belonging, it seems like that you're tapping into or wanting to tap into with your podcast. And especially people that feel that maybe within their own culture or within their
Mm-hmm.
own family group.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the folks that you're hoping to be able to speak to.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. It could be a single user to couples to, adolescents. Um, so anyone who really feels connected that could benefit from this podcast. So yeah.
Right. Right. Well, I think that speaks to a very large swath of people,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, right? At different times in our lives, right? When we are part of something that, ostensibly we belong to, however, we still feel othered, right? Within it, that whether that's a family or a social group or a cultural group or religious group, that's a wonderful group to be reaching out to, Amisha.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's a thing where, like there's no judgment as mentioned
Yeah.
and there's no
Right.
shame. So I really invite the public to, DM me or private message me
Yeah.
off of my Instagram or
Mhm.
um website, just about ideas or things that
Right.
they've come across,
Mhm.
right? In the sense of
Yeah.
like, is this normal?
Right, right, right. So with the format of the podcast, are you going to be kind of doing topics every week? Is it going to be interviews? What can people expect?
Absolutely, great question. So it's going to be mostly just topics. So topics such as, like I know TikTok and social media, everybody learns those words of gaslighting and narcissistic and bipolar. So really
Right.
talking through what those terms really mean, but how it means to yourself.
Sure.
Um, and then another thing, because of emotions, I talk about anxiety.
Yeah.
Emotions aren't
Right.
overreactions.
Mhm.
People always get identified like you're too sensitive
Yeah.
or you
Right.
cry a lot or why do you get mad so easily, So, um, things of that nature. Um, and then also talking about complex relationships within this systemic way.
Right.
Divorce is is starting to become known in the South Asian community. Um, Before it wasn't, it was a taboo. It still is,
Sure.
but it's
Sure.
like it feels like it's the end of the world, but it
Yeah.
actually could be actually like a rebirth of something better. So,
Right. Okay.
so yeah.
So each episode is going to tackle one of these different, interesting, complex, dynamic topics, right around, social media, social contagion,
Yeah.
emotional regulation, or kind of normal emotional experiences within this feeling of being othered, topics that are really specific then to the South Asian community, like, divorce, dealing with the stigma of divorce within that community, right? But those are really wonderful topics. Are you primarily going to be presenting about these? Are you going to be in conversation with other people about these?
I'm going to be primarily presenting.
Hmm. Hmm.
I haven't, I've thought about having some therapists on to see,
Sure.
or even like some friends on to actually
Right.
have
Right.
conversations.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
depending on how the season goes, I may change it up
Right.
to see what users
Hmm.
or not users, listeners will want
Yeah. Right.
and go from there.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. So when does this get started, Misha?
I'm so excited. It's going to get started next Wednesday, October
Okay.
8th.
Okay.
It
Nice.
is going to be available where you listen to podcasts. So Spotify,
Okay.
Apple,
Right.
YouTube, wherever you want to listen to.
Great. There's going to be video, things like that.
Um, it's going to start out with audio and then
Okay.
I'll probably transition into video. So
Okay.
depending on what my listeners want, because it's for
Sure.
them.
Right, right, absolutely. So you mentioned being on social media and people being able to reach out to you. Do you want people to volunteer topics? Or are you wanting people to kind of engage in this in kind of a more conversational way?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I would love if listeners can chime in and
Mhm.
like tell me what they've resonated with or some topics that
Right,
they want to me to talk about. I think that will be very helpful
right.
because I'm hearing directly from the listeners of like,
Hmm.
oh, this is what I've been through, and kind of taking polls to see
Yeah,
which
right,
episode or like, different topics. And then depending on the
right.
polls,
Hmm. Hmm.
I'll create more episodes from there.
Totally. Yeah. What issues people are resonating with, what matter most to folks, right?
Yeah.
So, podcasts, there's obviously a lot out there, right? It's
Hmm.
certainly a saturated space. I always think it's kind of interesting to, when you're imagining starting something like this, the niche you're trying to carve out. Um, what I liked about, our process of beginning It's All Relational was, the process of, developing a logo, naming, branding, all that kind of stuff. So what led to Let's Try and Chat? That's a great name.
Well, chai is such a staple in every
Mhm.
South Asian home.
Yes, yes.
Or like even if they don't drink it, it's somebody like their grandparents,
Right,
parents, siblings.
right.
I drink it every morning, it's
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
my go-to. So it's just a way because there's so many like, if friends or family come over, like at
Right,
any time during the day, it's a symbol. It's like, oh, it's more than just water. Let's just like,
right.
you've come to my home and let me brew you some chai, And so it's kind of really based on that.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. So best chai in Washington that you've had.
Outside of mine, I will say actually Zoka in Kirkland, they
Okay.
have this ginger chai that is really, really good, which I was very surprised of because sometimes it can be made too sweet or too strong. And
Right.
it actually, I was very surprised how well it was made.
Okay. So Zoka and Kirkland gets a shout
Yep,
out, but it sounds like maybe, your home brew is the best around.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
I had my colleagues taste it and they're like, oh wow, so
Yeah. Right.
if I see one of my listeners come to my door, I'm gonna offer you some chai. Um,
Well,
but
maybe this is the extension, when you franchise this idea beyond the podcast, you start your own pie shop. That'll be
yeah.
where we go next.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Well, wonderful. All right. So next Wednesday,
yeah.
October 8th, is when people are going to be able to see the premiere of this, right? And
Yes.
download it. And you're saying available anywhere you get podcasts.
Yep.
And folks are going to be, is there a schedule for how frequently you're planning on releasing these episodes?
Yes, it's going to start out with bi-weekly episodes.
Great. Hmm.
And it's going to just contain maybe 5 or 6
Yeah.
episodes. So, very short, like probably 30 minutes, 25 minutes,
Yeah. Great.
Um, so just enough that they're going to be like, oh my God, this person is good to, oh my God, this is, let me just shut this off. So, um,
Yeah.
just enough for a commuting purposes, I
Absolutely.
guess,
Yes.
or getting
Perfect.
ready.
Yeah. Wonderful. All right. Well, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the podcast today, Amisha. I'm so excited about Let's Try and Chat. It's a really valuable resource, I think, obviously specifically for the South Asian community, but more broadly for folks that have felt othered, while inside of a group, they're meant to belong to. That's a wonderful resource to create. So we're very excited to follow along.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so excited for the launch, and yeah, it's going to be available next week. And whoever you want to, therapists, school counselors, whoever they want to share it to, by all means.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will be listening. Thank you
All
so
right.
much, Amisha.
Thank you.